Well, good morning. Thanks for joining me. We're going to be starting the live stream soon. Today we're going to be doing some simple programming, some 68,000 assembly. Basically, I'll be starting writing some of the simple series of the tutorials. If you're not familiar with these streams, we do them every week, every Friday. I also have a Saturday stream, which is a bit later in the day. It's early evening in Japan, but in the UK that will be early morning. And in that we usually play some kind of retro games. Now tomorrow's going to be a bit special. We're going to be playing some of these simple fake mini arcade consoles. They're basically ARM-based sort of clones, recreations, if you will. I'm going to be unboxing a couple of those, and we're going to be opening them, seeing which ones are the best, and then I'm going to be announcing a competition in which we give 2 away. So please join me for that. So yeah, those 2 streams occur every week, so that you can rely on those happening. I will be doing some special streams over Christmas on Wednesdays. It'll be a midday MS-DOS session. That will be at say midday in Japan. That will be early evening in America. I think it's probably a pretty awful time for the UK, but I'm trying to spread them around just so that everyone in every territory can catch a couple of streams. So anyway, if you miss any of my streams, they all are kept up online, at least for a short time, so you should be able to see them a week or 2 later at your convenience. Anyway, let's start today's stream. Well, good morning, afternoon or evening, depending on where you are in the world. So it's 5 a.m. in Japan, and I have, as usual, had minimal sleep, shall we say. So we'll see how things are going. Hello there, Jesus. It's very kind of you to join me this morning. We're going to be programming some 68,000, sorry. So first, we're going to be having an attempt at the Amiga. Now, these are basically some frameworks that I've set up. These are going to become the simple series for the bitmaps. I've already written the Hello World series, so the initial code is based on my regular series, but we're going to be looking at it and trying to find some bits we can tidy up. For example, this section about using sprites, we're not going to need sprites for this example, so let's get rid of that. So just as I say, I'm just going to be going through, looking for any optimizations that I can make. As needed there. In some cases, sorry, I still have a bit of a cough, so I still have to mute the mic occasionally. Sorry. And I'm getting numlock zeros on screen because that's my mute key. It's very difficult to find a collection of keys that I can use to control OBS that are convenient and also aren't used by Notepad++, unfortunately. I can use weird combinations like Control-Alt-Shift and function keys and things, but you end up pressing so many keys to mute it. It makes so much noise, it was kind of hardly worth muting. So I've been using numlock 0, but it's not perfect. Anyway, I am hoping to do a special unboxing maybe this evening. It won't be a live stream, but it will be on this channel. I've bought this like weird customizable mini keyboard that I think you can pry the keys off and put new keys on, and I believe it's programmable, so you can make all the keys do weird things. So I'm going to unbox that, and I'll also be writing a review of that, doing a video review of that. Sorry. So hopefully that should be a bit interesting if you're like me and in need of weird configurable buttons. But anyway, I'm still trying to figure out the best solution for this for the live streaming in general. So as I say, just working on the hardware and software setup still a little bit over time. I'm getting more of a hang of it maybe. So I'm just looking at this. This is maybe a bit inconsistent here. We're pushing an awful lot of registers here for no reason. So let's just back up D1 and D2 here. A lot of this code originally was written for Grime 68,000, and it was kind of write something that works as quickly as possible, you know. I mean, honestly, I'm not sure what is defined as mechanical. I'm a bit hazy on this because the one I've got here is like really clicky, but it was cheap as anything. Um, I mean, it was about 6,000 yen. It wasn't, which is a $60 territory. So it was far more. This one was about the one I'm using today is about $20. So this one was far more expensive. But I mean, I think it's designed for sort of gaming because it's one of these sort of left-hand keyboards for WSAD configuration. But what I'm going to do with it is I'm going to, hopefully, assuming it can do it, is configure the keys to do like Control Alt Shift and F1, and that will be a different scene shift and things, and mute the mics and what have you. Because as you can see from all these zeros, I am having trouble. The only keys that I've currently found that work well with Notepad for defining function keys on is like Control Shift and the number keys along the top of the normal keyboard, and it's a little bit of a pain. So just for not making mistakes, I'm thinking getting in like this mini, it's like a half width keyboard basically, and I'm just thinking have that on the left, put stickers on the buttons saying, you know, this is your end screen, this is your back soon screen, this is your microphone mute, and hopefully there'll be less mistakes and I'll be able to switch more quickly. But as I say, it's the main thing was that the buttons are swappable, so you can I believe you can pry the key buttons off and put new ones on, and it's got a full set of normal QWERTY, and also I believe it's got a set of blank ones. So as I say, we'll see what it's like. Even if it's not very good, I can do the review of it. So it'd be nice to get some more varied content on the channel. I have also heard that YouTube favours, and I keep hearing contradictory things. The latest one I've heard is that YouTube favours pre-recorded content over live streams with regards to promoting. So I thought maybe if I do this pre-recorded video of a sort of unboxing review of it, then maybe that will help promote this channel to people, because the original unboxing I did of the cheapo laptop that I'm streaming on live now, that actually still gets a few, just one or two hits a day. You know, it does get a bit of attention, and most of the live streaming content doesn't. Okay, I'm getting a undefined symbol bitmap next line here, so it's all these zeros from my, that's gonna cause right trouble, isn't it? Okay, so I'm going to go back to using the mouse to mute the microphone rather than my numeric keypad here, because that's going to say that the numpad 0 worked great for the gaming. I think it's going to cause a lot of bugs for today's stream though, so we'll have to rethink that. Well, that's not very good, is it? What's gone wrong there? Hang on a minute. Did it work this before? This worked before, didn't it? I thought these were all tested. Yeah, I've broken something. Okay, should have gone through it a bit more slowly. Okay, I think I can see it. This is, oh no, maybe, I can't remember if that is needed for the regular screen or not, so let's get rid of that. Get rid of it, see if that fixes it. So that's okay. We need this to do just A6 and B1 to 2. I don't know where my typo occurred there then. Looks like I must have made one there. Right, what am I missing then? Yeah, I shouldn't be backing up A6, should I? That's the register I'm defining the destination address in. That's just me being stupid there. You have to excuse me. I can sometimes get some good programming done at 5 AM, but sometimes it's a bit iffy, you know. Hi there, Luke. It's very kind of you to join me today. We're doing some 68,000. No, it's a pleasure, Luke. It's quite handy for me because I mean, in some cases, I've been able to live stream things I wouldn't usually do, or wouldn't be particularly enthusiastic to attempt, like the disassembly, for example. It was like, well, you know, I don't want to do this. I'm really bad at it. So forcing myself to live stream it, it's like, well, you know, it's kind of like you're on camera now. You got to put an effort in, and also it's like, well, if it doesn't produce any results, but a few people watch it, then maybe they get some entertainment out of it, even if I don't get any productive results. But ironically, the Fantasy Star disassembly went pretty well after the stream, mostly, but it went pretty well. So if anyone watching hasn't seen it, there's a post on my forum. It's linked in the originally Fantasy Star video that I've written a summary of the disassembly and how the compression routines work for the cave sections. So if that's of any interest to anyone. So just looking through all of this code then, and just seeing if there's anything that's not needed. Do we need wait v blank? I don't think we need that. No, we do. We need it for that. Well, we'll leave it as is then. Okay. Got our sprite here. Definitions for the library, the screen area. Mysteries of the copper list. Trying to see if anything here is redundant, or if there's anything I mean, that needs clearing up. Try and get everything looking a bit neater. Oh, okay. No, that's a continuation of the last line. So we've got to get everything nice and neat here. But yeah, as I said, I'm going to be testing these little arcade machines tomorrow, just as a bit of fun. But I will be giving 2 of them away. If you look at the photo, the ones I'll be giving away is one of the very small ones, and one of the ones at the back that are these 200-in-1 type machines. And hang on a minute. Just coughing again at an inappropriate time. And the competition is going to be very simple. All you've got to do is write something in assembly and tell people about it on my forum, and it's free to join my forum. So anyone who's willing to put an hour or 2 or a half day into learning a few lines of assembly and making an effort to do something can enter that competition and win one. Yeah, that's right, Jesus. It's an offset of minus. It's effectively jump to A6 minus 222, like that. Where was it? That's not a great. It's not a great syntax, to be honest. I mean, I've got some inconsistency here. I mean, Vasm does let you get away with it, but in a lot of cases, I've sort of built this code up from like samples in books and samples I've found online. So occasionally, I'll have found a few lines that I'll have typed in or copied as is without particularly thinking about it. But I don't really like the ones where the offset is outside of the brackets. I might be wrong, but I have this feeling that that's a bit of a sort of dated thing that isn't the done thing anymore, but it does work at least on this Vasm assembler. But I do try and, as well spotted, I do try and remove those when I see them, because I find them confusing, although I do understand they work. But let's pick it through. I mean, to be honest, this is one of these things that I've seen and it works, but I don't fully understand it. I mean, if you look here, it's loading from address 4 into A6 here, and then it's doing a bunch of jumps. So, and these are the system calls, I guess. Effectively, all we're doing here is opening an operating system library to gain the graphics hardware, and then once we've got that, we don't use those kind of commands again. So to my knowledge, there's no way of doing this without those jumps. But I guess I need to maybe dig further into the Amiga documentation and look what address, because my reading of this is loading from the data stored in address 4 here. But it certainly works, but I don't quite have a full grasp of it. If you look up these offsets, like this offset -552 is called called open library in the exec routine, and then this returns this graphics library, and no, I'm about to say, and then I think we're using that graphics library as a parameter in the Oh no, we're loading the address of that graphics library, and then using command -222, which is called load view within that graphics library. As I say, it's a bit. When I'm doing these tutorials, I tend to try and avoid using the operating system as much as possible, because, well, in a lot of ways, I'm covering a lot of systems and covering them with fairly quickly because of covering so many, and so I get it's quite difficult for me to learn and remember all of the different systems. Just learning 6502, 68000 and Z80 and remembering those is a struggle. So learning complexities of individual systems is a bit tough for me. So I get out of the hardware specific stuff and write my own stuff like this as quickly as I can, just so I can more easily manage the number of systems. But in some cases there's going to be better or easier ways to do things with the firmware, but as I say, it's just trying to make it more manageable for me in some cases. But yeah, that's one case we do have to use the hardware, and of course the Amiga hardware as well. You've got all of this copper list here, some very unique things about the way the Amiga does its screen. But defining our bit planes here, it's a planar system. The Amiga, it's a nice system. It does come across as a little bit complicated for the beginner. I'd never claim the classic Atari ST was superior to the Amiga, but I do think it's maybe slightly easier for a beginner programmer, just because you don't have some of this extra complexity. But I mean, to be honest though, this example here there's not a lot I can see to do to make it better. So what we'll do now is we'll save this, and then we'll save a second copy of it. I'm saying this, but what we're going to do now is we're going to do the much simpler version with the smiley face. I've just been documenting. I'm on the last few of the 6502 series for this, and so I split the two versions now and start working on the second simpler one, and then I'll start documenting the simpler one. And there seems to always be this case where when I'm documenting the simpler one, I still find it like things like that outside of position. I'll find a load of things that need correcting and then have to correct them in both. So that's unfortunately a bit of a thing that seems to happen every single time. So the second example just does a 8x8 smiley face, and the theory for this is if you were looking to build a simple tile map program like Grime Z80 was, an 8x8 tile is often a lot easier on some of these systems. The hardware tile map based systems, for example, it's very simple, and systems like the Spectrum that were just 1 bit per pixel, it's just 1 byte wide and 8 pixel sprite. So that was the theory behind the smiley face tutorials. So I'm continuing on the 16 color systems. They maybe don't make quite so much sense, but yeah, I like to keep. I'm trying to keep consistency across all of the systems, and so I still think this is a worthwhile tutorial to have. So I'm just saving a file in the correct format here, and then I'm going to use my binary converter here. We're going to convert it to assembly source. Just my theory here is, having used a variety of assemblers over my tutorials, often when you're using a new assembler, if you're not using the same one as me, it can be difficult to figure out how to do simple things like include a binary file. You know, the commands are sometimes different. In extreme cases, they may not even be there. So as a bit of a help for the beginner, I'm trying to, you know, rather than doing this ink bin, I'm including the file as binary data here. So if we compile this, oh, what am I doing? No, not and symbols. I need to use dollar symbols, don't I? Yeah, that's my one size fits all file converter there, which is quite handy when it comes to doing PDP-11, because you can't include binary files on that system and you need to sort of work in octal and things. So I've called, there we go. So yeah, the smiley face is there, but there's a load of corruption because my file's not big enough. I've called my file W. I don't know if you noticed that, but I can use Alt and W to enable warp mode to speed up the emulator. And so by calling the file W, I can press Alt W to turn off the speed up, type W, enter, then press Alt W again to turn the speed up back on, and it allows me to start the program a little bit quicker. Due to my limited knowledge of the Amiga, I've not been able to figure out a way of making it automatically start with the emulator, unfortunately. It would be nicer if it could, but as I say, I don't know how to do it, so that's my best solution at the moment, and it's working okay. Okay, so this one will need to be 8 pixels wide. It's interesting, on this machine, it's actually, my regular machine, I have to turn warp mode off here, because if I press W down, it will actually type lots of W's in one go because the machine's so fast, but this one isn't fast enough for it to be a problem. So there's our smiley face, too tall still, but we can fix that. We just need to change this one. So there we go. So now we've defined our width and our height. Now I'm just looking at this and I'm wondering whether we should unwrap this or not. Remove the loop. So yes, we should. So because yeah, what we can do here, we can do this in words, can't we? We can remove the loop here. So if I just do this will be quite good actually. And I change this to move W. No, move L. Maybe our 8x8 version does work. Does make a lot of sense then. Oh, no dear. I've done something pretty wrong there. What have I done? Okay, I can't see what I've done wrong there. Is it an align? It could be an alignment issue, maybe. Yeah, it'll be an okay, that's a shame. I think this is an alignment issue. The 68,000 can only do long reading and writing on even boundaries, so that's not going to work so well. Okay, that's a shame. I was forgetting that. So it's one of those things I have a nasty habit of forgetting. So we can't even do, we're still going to have to work in bytes then. That's a shame. I'm just wondering, should I unwrap the loop or should I not? No, let's leave it as it is. Yeah, oh well. It's a shame. So I don't think it's really... This is your problem with your 68,000. It's kind of... With the 6502, there's always lots to optimize. With the 68,000, you've got so many registers and things. There's nothing to do, nothing to optimize most of the time. I mean, I'm not just looking if there's anything that's pushing too many registers on the stack. I have got incredibly lazy in places, pushing all the registers when I could just push one. But I think even that's not really a problem. So let's take a look at... Oh god, the Neo Geo, that's going to be a pain. It's going to be a right pain. How am I going to do that? Because the problem with the Neo Geo is the smiley face thing. It's all in ROM, so I'll have to rebuild the ROM with the smiley face in it. So let's have a go at that. So I'm going to do edit, copy to clipboard, file, load. Oh, I can't even do that. I'm already using a bunch of other sprites for the other sprite example. Let's think it through. Oh no, they're in the... let's have a look. This is a pain. Let's have a look at the XML and let's decide what to do. So if we go... So if we go to release Neo here and hash. Now if you're not familiar with the Neo Geo and you've not watched my other tutorials, I'm using MAME for my programming. Now the problem you have with the cartridge based machines is that the emulators, the specific Neo Geo emulators, they're pre-programmed with all of the games, so they know that the structure of the games, but if you're writing your own, then you've got your own structure. Whereas, and the only one I could find that really made this viable was the main one, which uses these XML files. So this XML file here defines each of the files and how that appears to the Neo Geo hardware. So you've got sprite ROMs here, and you've got fixed ROMs here, and you've got the program code here, and you've got all of these CRCs and SHAs and sizes and things, and they are a pain as well, especially the sizes. If the size is wrong, it can crash the emulator. So what I did is I've written a little program and I've written a template here, and so you see there's like a size % size, and my little program will just scan through this file and it will find those and it will calculate them. So it would look down this file and go, oh, well, I need to calculate the size. So it will look for the name part, load up file 201-s1.s1, and it will calculate the size, the CRC and the SHA, and it will patch them into this line, and then it will output the result to this file just here. And that was mostly solving the problems. Now, the only one I'm not sure if it would solve is, I had this real problem with using very small. If I used a very small file here, or the size was wrong, it would actually crash. MAME would just completely crash. Whereas if the CRC was wrong, MAME would just say, hey, your CRC is wrong, don't be silly. So that was a real pain, and I don't know if it was just that I was defining the size incorrectly here, or if it was just that the size had to be a very even size, because with the other ones, if the size was wrong, it didn't care. Anyway, so what I think we'll do, so this is the firmware fix layer graphics. This is the font that I use in my tutorials, and this is the Neo Geo example, which shows the Chibico character, the little vampire character that I use to the screen. So what I think we'll do for our smiley is we'll create yet another file called smiley.fix, and we'll include that at a different address. But I mean, honestly, it's this that is the reason that I tend to recommend the Genesis over the Neo Geo for the beginner, because this is, I mean, it's just not what you want to be bothered with if you're just trying to write Hello World, you know. But unfortunately, because of the way the Neo Geo is structured with all of these separate ROMs and the hardwired to different pieces of hardware, if you look at the chart of how the hardware works, it's like the CPU talks to the graphics processor, and the graphics processor has its own ROM file, its own hardware ROM, and the ROM is wired only to the graphics hardware, and the CPU can't get to that ROM. And then you got the sound processor, which is a Z80, and again the 68000 can talk to the Z80, and then the Z80 has its own little ROM, and the CPU can't access that ROM, and you're just like, oh my god. And it makes sense, but then you think, well, I can see why the Neo Geo has these huge cartridges with these millions of pins coming out of them on two boards. It's like because there's so many data buses going to so many different bits of hardware, I guess. But if as I say, I can imagine that would make sense to the hardware developer, and I'm not saying it's got any problems for the resulting hardware, but for just getting started and just showing a bitmap on the screen, you know, you can't use your ink bin now. So what I'm going to do then is we're going to do 68,000 Neo Geo save fixed bitmap, and why doesn't it show my X drive next to my D drive? Wish it would do. Wish it would. Where's? Oh, it's rel Neo ROMs, and I think we're using Chibi Akuma's game here, so we're going to call this smiley.fix. There we go. And then now neogeo.xml is the live one, but I need to put this in this template, because when I do my build command, which I just do by F6 because I use a batch file, that batch file will actually convert this file, and it will calculate things like the size for me, and hopefully that'll be the end of it, unless the file's too small and the emulator crashes again, which we'll hope it won't. Now, this file is absolutely tiny, but just to keep things a bit neat, I'm going to change this to 1.4 here, just so we've got a smooth progression here. I think the limit is enormous anyway. You know, that's something the Neo Geo, as you all I'm sure know, is that the Neo Geo had crazy capabilities when it came to sprite numbers and RAM storage. I mean, it starts up with that max 330 mega pro gear spec thing, but ironically, the last releases, which came around 2000, they were massively more than that. It was like, you know, they were bragging about their huge cartridge size, and even the brag was an understatement. So that's quite funny. So okay, so let's execute this then. Where is it? Is it coming? Grief, that took a while. So that's our initial example with the Chibi-Go character. We'll need to go over this now and just check it out, and then we'll do the smiley character version instead. The Neo Geo CD, Jesus, yeah. Yes, that had occurred to me. I haven't got the script set up to build the CD images. Yeah, I did. It's another one that I'd like to cover. It's just at the moment I can't really cope with any more learning of any more systems. So I'm kind of putting it off. But yeah, that is a very sound point. I've also got a Neo CD unit, ironically still in the shrink wrap. I've not taken out the packaging, but it can run CDRs. I know that. So you could, if I made my own game on the Neo Geo CD, I could burn it to a CDR and just test it without any other messing around. But yeah, Jesus, you're correct. The Neo Geo CD would be the preferable one for people looking to write games and get started without this kind of messing around. So I guess that's something I do need to spend some time and try and figure out how to get a valid CD image working. I'm a bit nervous about the whole CD image thing because games that work with ROM are usually very easy for me to get started with. Systems that use floppy disks can be a complete nightmare because you got if you can't find the tools to build the discs, and then you got to figure out how to get them to boot. And with CDs, I've got, I just don't know where I'm beginning with that kind of thing. I think the only time I've ever built a CD is like when I'm building a custom Windows XP install disk or something. So I've got no experience of the CD format in the kind of depth that I'll need. But yeah, as I say, you are definitely correct. That would be the easier solution. Unfortunately, the ROM header changes quite a lot, and the way you access the hardware changes, because things like the fixed layer are now a bank of RAM, not a ROM. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a pain to support. But yes, you're correct. It doesn't. It does. It is arguably the better solution. I don't disagree. So I'm just scanning through here. Because I'm backing up A0 to 8. Just got a warning that it's updated, and that's because you see the smiley's now been had its CRC and size calculated. So that's why that file will update every single time. What's going on there? I don't know why the mouse is flickering like that. It will update every single time I run the program by design. So anyway, so I think we can take these out. I'm just going to simplify this this version here. And let's get that label in the correct place as well. Thank you. It's not in the right place there. Now I'm going to continue backing up all of the data registers here. I think it looks like we're pretty much using all of them, but we don't need to back up those address registers. It's starting a little bit faster this time. Maybe I've never run it on this machine. Maybe I've never loaded the emulator on this machine before. It's not impossible. Some tabbing inconsistency here. I don't know what they're doing all over the place there. This the header for this was originally taken from this absolute beginner tutorial here. Now that did actually support the Neo Geo CD, but I didn't use their build tools. I used my own. So I would have to go back and look at and work out what exactly they were doing for that, maybe. It's on my to-do list alongside the Jaguar list of things I really ought to get down to, but can't handle the depression right now. So it'd be nice to do them, but it's just so difficult taking on new systems and staring at code that won't compile. So I'm putting it off at the moment. I'll do it one day though. I mean, in some ways the Jaguar would be more tempting to me. I would like to have a go at it, although I looked at the manual and I felt quite disappointed, shall we say. It seems like it seems like the Jaguar was the true successor to the Atari Lynx, both in the sense of the improvements to the technical hardware and the improvements to the crappy documentation, in the sense that they are quite substantially more crappy, more hard to understand, and have even less examples than the previous, which I actually doubted was possible, but Atari, went the extra mile and did make the documentation even more crappy. So well done to them there. Yeah. Yeah, I've said before, it's still utterly in shock at the Atari Lynx documentation. It looks like they gave it to. There's like jokes in it and comments about things not working, and it looks like they gave it to like an intern or the office joker, and the version that was unfinished got released. I mean, maybe that's it. Maybe the leaked version was never supposed to be released, but it looks like it was. Anyway, never mind. We will just have to tolerate the Lynx for its documentation. Real shame, because if the documentation was good, it would be my it would probably be my recommended machine for 6502, because it's a real fast processor, nice 16 color bitmap screen. Performance of the hardware sprites are so powerful and so fast, but you just can't make any sense of the documentation and the way the sound processor works. It's the first time I've had to give up trying to read the documentation to even make a beep. I had to go online and find someone else's sample who'd figured it out. The documentation was impenetrable. So unless there was, the only thing I can assume is that the original dev kit, as well as the documentation, I think came with some development tools, and maybe there was some usable samples in there, because I don't know, I couldn't make any sense of it at all, and it was just like, well, it was the kind of document that if it was the first system I'd tried to program, I would have come to the conclusion I was an idiot and that I wasn't good enough a programmer to be able to program in assembly, because it was so impenetrable. But having read the documentation for another dozen systems, and having read AY sound chip documentation when I know nothing about music and things, and managing to get the AY working, when I stared at the Lynx documentation and was completely unable to make head and tail of it, and completely unable to make a single beep from the hardware, I'm fairly confident that that's the fault of the person writing the documentation, not the fault of me for not being smart enough to understand it. I mean, even the SPC 700 was easier, and that was tough. But even that was, I mean, it was well documented. It was just difficult. But anyway, yeah, the joys of old failed systems with dodgy documentation. This cough's still causing me trouble. It's quite annoying. I do apologise. So now we've got our advanced version. Now we're going to do a simple version. Is that even correct? I think that might actually be wrong there. Let's just check. Yeah, that's a typo. We're loading in at 12,200, not 1,000. This is again this thing about. The second I write these things, they're wrong. You have to save that old version, and I've already found a bug in it. So. Hang on a minute, I'm getting confused. What was I looking at there? Oh, the fill area with tiles. Okay. remember what the mathematics for this is. Is it divided by 32? Hang on a minute, that didn't work. And that's wrong as well. That's not what. It's not tile 1/800. It's tile 800 with palette. Ah, okay. So no, the tile number. Okay, yeah, okay, I get it now. So no, the tile number's 256. So that was right. Yeah, okay. So tile 0 would be the font. So, okay, so I'm back on track remembering how my software works here. So I think Smiley will be at 512 maybe. There it is, there's our Smiley. Let's get it a bit bigger. So yeah. So it's not so bad, that'll do. It's a reasonable way of doing it. It does mean that you have to have a separate XML file for our program, which means that the documentation for this tutorial is going to have to cover that as well. So I won't appreciate that, but never mind. Let's take all of this down to here, because this is for doing this tile grid, but the simple Smiley is just a single tile, so we don't want to do that, and we don't want to be backing up anything in the stack here. So we don't need to do that bit there. We don't need these labels here because we're not doing any of that. Sorry, I just trying to remember what the code does. It's been a while. It's been a while since I wrote this, so I'm having to remember firstly how the code works, and also, of course, how the Neo Geo works. So it's all a bit difficult when you hop between 3 systems in a day. You're kind of like, oh, I get confused which system does what. So. Yeah, we're doing an offset here because the top 2 columns are invisible and things. So. Yeah, all looks pretty logical there. Nothing too pretty sensible there. So that's our start X and our start Y. We have a lot of inconsistency here with our tabbing though, so we're going to have to sort all that out. I don't know what people think of the little hotkey program here. It's off screen usually, but you can see it in the little window kind of down here, this thing here. I can't move the mouse over it. It's called OSD Hotkey. I found it online. It's like a free little program, and it's written in, I think it's called AutoIt script, which is this open source scripting engine. Now, it's basically the only free program you can get to do that kind of thing, but there were a few things in it that weren't quite didn't quite work how I would have preferred. What was it? Oh, it would show the mouse cursor, the mouse clicks and things, and it's like, well, you don't typically need that kind of thing. And it was showing things on screen for very, very large periods of time, or showing them for, I forget, there was some problem with it where it was like, the way it was showing the text was quite confusing, but because it was running on, it was just a script file on this open source engine, I was actually able to download the source, which was gone off the main website, but you could still find it on archive.org. And I made a few tweaks to it and removed the mouse cursor warnings, although I've made it so they are re-enableable, and changed a few other things with regards to the way it showed things. And I think it's quite. One thing I did was, like, if I type and then I delete it, originally it would have shown the delete key, but I changed it so it would show what actually should, in theory, be still shown on the screen. But you can confuse it if I type SSS here and then I go up and delete. Oh, it actually caught that. Oh, it's cleverer than I thought. Okay. Anyway, as I say, it's yeah, it does have a few glitches, but it does. I thought it was quite handy. So if anyone likes that and wants a copy of it, give me a shout. I'll just send it over, because I say it's the original was open source, and I'm happy to redistribute it. I'll probably put it on my GitHub at some point if there's any interest, because I think a few people do use the original version, and it's no longer updated by the original author, to my knowledge. Unfortunately, they seem to have moved from. If you go to the old website, it now goes to a what's the LinkedIn. It goes to a LinkedIn account, and I'm not logging into. I don't use LinkedIn, so I've no idea whether the program is still available at all, or if there's a newer version on the LinkedIn account. But I kind of doubt it. I think it's probably a dead project, unfortunately. But it's to say it's the best one I came across to do this that wasn't a paid solution. Anyway, just I'm trying to work out how to read your name. Squircel, is that? I'm glad it's some help. I mean, the main reason for it is that when I'm doing these things and starting the emulator here, because I'm so used to doing it. Sorry, this cough's driving me nuts. Because I'm so used to doing it, I'd get it done so quickly, people won't be able to tell what's going on. Hello, Evil Sandwich. Very kind of you to join me. We're halfway through the stream, so yeah, feel free to leave and join as you see fit. I'll sit here talking drivel, whether there's anyone here or not. So you don't need to worry about. I'm not gonna drop into a state of depression if there's no viewers or no one's chatting. So you're welcome to. Anyone's welcome to come and go or lurk and chat as they feel fit. So, but yeah, I was hoping that the hotkey would help the beginners who are maybe downloading my tools or just curious to know what's actually going on to make things happen. And things like when I'm starting the emulator here, for example, the MAME I'm using, I use the end key to speed it up, and you can see that there. Again, I'm trying to point at a thing off the screen, and that's actually been reconfigured. The reason I use the end key is the X68000, the Sharp emulator, that uses the end key to speed things up. Did I say X there? The end key to speed things up. So I use the same key on multiple emulators, just so I had a little bit less to remember. So yeah, we seem to have 7 viewers this morning, which is relatively good for my streams, which I do highly appreciate. It's very kind of everyone to join me. I never quite know how these streams are going to go. The 5 a.m. start, I'm getting a little bit better. At first, it was kind of like a zombie on the stream, you know. But I think I'm starting. When I'm travelling internationally, I suffer really, really badly with jet lag, and I think even getting up 1 hour earlier for these streams did seem to take me as much as a few weeks to get used to. But Evil Sandwich, yeah. I mean, I've seen people use them a large number of times, and they're certainly helpful. So it was just trying to find a solution that worked in the way that that I was looking for. So, and I say this is absolutely perfect. It's I consider it absolutely perfect. I mean, other people may prefer something else, but as I say, it was a free solution, so you can't ask more than that. And for the mouse cursor highlighting, I'm cheating. I found this mouse cursor highlighter that seemed to work really well, and I got it all set up, and I thought, right, I'm good to go now. And then I tried to use it on OBS, and I didn't realize OBS is actually replacing the mouse cursor with its own. So the mouse cursor highlighting program didn't work. So I had a quick rethink, and I actually made my own cursor set for Windows. And so that's actually my Windows cursor now with that highlight built into it. And that worked okay. But it was a bit like, well, I spent ages getting the mouse cursor software set up and testing it, and I thought, oh, it's perfect. And then tried to record it, and nothing recorded. So never mind. But yeah, it's just changing, just making my own cursor set was a adequate solution, I think. And again, the only other alternative I could find online that would work with OBS was a paid solution, which, like, well, I don't mind particularly using a paid solution, but I would, if there's a free open or an open source one available, I would prefer to use that. But at the moment, everything I'm using in my streams is free or open source. I do try to keep that as a sort of way of doing things, because I like to be able to say to people, well, you know, if you want to try giving the programming or giving the streaming a go, then price isn't a barrier to that. But I don't know, there might be a point where I do have to start rethinking that because of just what's available and what isn't. I do all of my editing in Shotcut as well for the same reason, which I do find a very capable editor. I'm sure, I know a lot of people use the Sony Vegas Pro, I think it is, or something like that. I'm not saying that's not, I'm not going to say that's not better, although I've never used it, but I think I can do everything I need with Shotcut, and as I say, it's an open source solution, so I'd rather use that. It's also getting a lot better. I've been using Shotcut for about a year and a half now, and I did use an alternative free program which was a little bit difficult to work with. It crashed a little bit and things got slower, and Shotcut didn't have those problems, and it is getting better with every release, so I do find it a very nice solution. So I would certainly recommend Shotcut to anyone looking to do some free video editing. Blender is very, very powerful for video editing, but it's a little bit daunting. I have done it, but it uses all of these I forget what they call it. You can link all of these objects together, and you can build your video scene from all of these sort of chained filters and things. The node editor, I think it is, and very, very powerful, but it's far too much for. It's more VFX Studio kind of thing than something like this, where I'm actually trying to do more of the editing live now, even for the pre-recorded videos, just with it's like if I press what have we got here? If I can switch to the stream start soon here, and you get these little animations and things, and I can do like the fade out. So I can do all of those kind of things in real time, and I'm doing more of that in the pre-recorded tutorials as well. Just firstly, it looks nice and it keeps a consistent style, but it also reduces the amount of time the editing takes just a little bit. Which, as I say, it's like, well, anything I can do to keep things as simple as possible. But I'm really trying to improve the visual style of the live streams, and if I can do it live, then why not do it on the pre-recorded stuff as well? So that's kind of my thinking. TAD89, I'm sure they do. I've been following Blender for probably since my uni days, really. I heard it at first. I did some playing around back a long time ago with 3D Studio Max, and I had like a trial version, and I did some work on that, and it was very, very powerful. And at the same time, I was playing with what was Blender at the time, and this was around 2000, and it was kind of like, well, 3D Studio is very, very good, but you know, problems with licensing and things. And Blender is, you know, it's a bit of fun. It can do some stuff with it, but it's a bit icky. You know, it kind of works, but 3D Studio is like the thing, and as I've said before, for a short period, I was helping out with that game, that 13th Doll game, which was all at the time being 3D rendered in 3DS and being exported as AVI files. And so I was using 3DS for that. And anyway, things didn't work out, and I moved away from that project. And I gave up on the 3D rendering, but I did come back to it before I started Z80 programming for a while. And looking at Blender now, and looking at 3DS then, it's like, well, Blender now can do everything that 3D Studio could, to my mind, and more, for free. So I'm sure the modern 3DS is superior than Blender, or at least I'll assume it is. But Blender can do some incredible stuff now. And I'm talking about 2.7, and 2.8's come out now, and it's like they've revamped the UI, and the design looks excellent. And I say that the list of functions is just absolutely phenomenal. And it's a free program, so if some 13-year-old is sitting in their bedroom suddenly thinks I want to try and make Toy Story, then there's a possibility they could, thanks to that. So as I say, it's very good. I don't have any time, unfortunately, now to do anything serious with it. When 2.8 came out, I did throw a donation their way just to show some support, and I did the Chibi Aliens game. I did the design work on this spaceship in Blender, but I say I don't have the time to keep up the skills. So unfortunately, it's one that has it's a skill that's unfortunately fallen by the wayside for now. But it's an incredible bit of software, absolute. I mean, it's for a while it's been one of the sort of, I'd say, one of the flagship pieces of software that the others have probably been looking up to for the design and the functionality. Critter, I think is it Critter? That's very good as well. I used to use GIMP, and the UI of GIMP's a little bit difficult, whereas the Critter one is far more like Photoshop. I'm coughing. And I use I do use GIMP still for the odd thing, animated GIFs, and if you're creating 3D texture maps, it can create normal maps, and I use GIMP for that. But I use Critter as my main one. Very comfortable program to use, and I do find the functionality very, very good as well. TAD89, I've heard that the licensing is becoming a real serious problem now for them, and some of them are basically banning 3DS because they can't afford it. My understanding was that it was something like, they're outsourcing work to sub studios, and so even if the main studio's got their team and they can afford it, they can't afford the licensing for all the people who are potentially working on it. So and I would imagine that there's probably some cross compatibility, so that if you're outsourcing work to design a model or something, maybe the outsourcers can work on it in Blender and then import it into I'm sure Unity and things have got importing tools for Blender. So I'd say it's just such a quality product. I mean, the only thing I could possibly say as a negative about it is it's very complex to use, but I don't think that's Blender. I think that's 3D rendering, because 3DS was complex to use. So very nice, very, very nice product, very impressive. Back when I was young, the only 3D rendering software I could find was the what was it called, 3D construction kit for the Amstrad CPC, and that was about $15-20. That was expensive compared to most software. So as I say, I really hope that young people who are creatively minded are taking advantage of this kind of thing and doing some nice art with it, because they've really got the tools available to them now. Open source has really come along over the last sort of 10-20 years in my mind. Back in the 90s, Well, back when I was about 12, the only artwork package I had was, I think it was Paint Shop. It was the early Paint Shop for Windows 3.1. It was a really old version that they used to sell on CD at the supermarket for $10. And that was the only paint package I had. And if it wasn't for that, I'd have had nothing. I'd have had MS Paint, I guess. And then later, when I was at uni, everyone was using sort of pirated copies of Photoshop and things, which seems a good idea at the time. But then you realise that any skills you learn on that isn't going to help you in industry, because if the industry you work in is not willing to pay for Photoshop, then you've got no skills again. So, as I say, nowadays, with all of the free tools available, there's no real justification for that kind of silliness, I don't think. If you can't afford Photoshop, you should use Critter. If you can't afford 3ds, you should use Blender, which I say. I've been chatting away, not doing very much programming this morning. I apologise if you came for the programming. I do apologise for that. But as I say, it's a bit of a these streams are a bit of a well, we'll see what happens kind of job. If Steam's complaining about things. Maybe I've never run it before. I don't think I've ever run it on this machine before. Came up with a right big long list of complaints. Okay, no, that's fine, Tad89. I'm not familiar with the Games Factory. I do apologise. What is? Please tell me what that is. Is that like an Amiga? Oh, the emulator's crashed. Oh no, it's all right. It is running, I think. Oh dear, we got problems here. We got problems. Oh, there we go. It just the emulator's having a bit of a spasm because it's the first time it's been loaded on this computer. It's okay now. We've got some kind of scrolling message down here. Yeah, Tad89. I'm fascinated to know what the Games Factory is. I don't want to Google it at this moment. So if you'd let me know more about that, I'd be very interested to hear about it. So I'm just scanning through the code here. I'm sure there's some savings I can make. For example, here I got all of these registers. I'm backing up A0 to A5, but I'm never using them, so that's really wasteful. It's not a big problem. Ah, sounds great. Okay, so it's a it makes games with a simple UI. Yeah. I mean, as I say, over the years, I was a basic programmer on the CPC and then later the PC. We had Quick Basic, not just QBasic on the PC. I used 3D Construction Set a little bit, but it was really, really slow on the CPC. It was fun, but it was slow. So I never really created anything you'd call a game on that. And I also had a little play with there was some kind of text adventure game that could do graphics, so you could like draw little graphical scenes as well. It must have come free with an Amstrad Action cassette or something, because I wouldn't have bought something like that. But I did have a play with that, and that was a lot of fun as well. Yeah, there's I don't know about kids these days, but back then there was a lot of satisfaction to be had in making a computer do the things you had thought of. You know, even if you were just drawing a few simple graphics or making a very simple drawn screen and a text prompt, you could have a lot of fun with it. Yeah, it sounds great. Tad89, as I say, I think in the first case, if you're trying to encourage children to have a go at programming, the first thing is just to give them something that works and allows them to to feel confident in what they're doing and, you know, see things happen. So it certainly sounds perfect for that kind of thing. I did see, I mean, the Raspberry Pi's got some stuff, and I think the Oliver twins write Pac-Man or something weird in some weird drag and drop programming engine. It's something weird like that. Yeah. I do have a Raspberry Pi. I've not done too much with it. I did notice the Raspberry Pi. I think it's now got these drag and drop programming engines for kids, which sound great. But I did notice it had a built-in C assembler and a bunch of OpenGLC examples that came on the SD card, which blew me away. And I did at one point. I was writing some test code on Linux, a little video player. I wrote my own little video format and wrote a video player for it. And I did manage to get that to compile on the Raspberry Pi. There were some graphical problems with the way the layering was working because the graphics hardware was quite different, which is unsurprising. But as I say, the fact I was able to get it to compile at all was brilliant. Okay, yeah. So Squirtle, what's Minecraft like for programming? Is that something that's teaching it a fairly is that a scripting thing, or is it a drag and drop thing? I know Minecraft is huge. I never played it myself, but as I say, I know that's a huge thing. I'm just trying to ask to what kind of experience are they getting when they're doing that? Because if it's something like a JavaScript type of approach, then that's going to be a very solid programming and gig practice for them. Okay, I see. Oh, right. Okay. Well, it sort of doesn't surprise me. That sounds like a lot of fun. I can see the fascination in Minecraft. I'm just not gonna get into that. Thank you very much. I have too much other stuff to do to be getting involved in a time sink like that. So yeah, very good. Well, logic gates are a thing that are definitely worth knowing, because of course logic gates, you're learning if statements, aren't you, essentially? And if you can get your head around the XOR pretty early, and you know, if you can get things like that in your mind pretty young, then that's going to help you later on. So it's going to be a good thing, I think. Just scanning through the code here, just checking if there's anything that I want to restructure here. Yeah, Tad89. There's a free Minecraft. I've forgotten what it's called. It's like this open source thing, and I did have a play at that, and I did spend like far more time than I should on it. But yeah, I mean, I used to do that. I used to play the games for days and weeks and things when I was young, on holiday, on like the Christmas holidays or the summer holidays and things. And it's like, well, you can kind of do that when you're young, but if at my age, it's like, well, if that's really the best thing you've got to do, then maybe it shouldn't be. I mean, it's, you know, if you've been working all year and it's your Christmas holiday and you want to spend your Christmas playing Minecraft, then I suppose you go for it. If that gets the stress out. But as I say, for me at the moment, it's just like, I feel like I should be doing something a bit more productive. So I say at the moment I'm doing these tutorials, but there's a few other things I've done in the past to make use of my time. I submitted a bunch of free textures to Open Game Art and things. Took some photographs, converted them to seamless textures and things, and that was something that I spent a holiday doing once, just because I wanted to do something a bit creative that felt slightly productive. So anyway, I think this advanced version's okay. So I'm going to save this and create a regular version. I did waste when I was about probably 13, 14, something like that. I did spend I think like 2 weeks of our vacation playing Frontier Elite. I got a copy of that from someone, and it was just like, at first you played it and you just crashed and you're like, this game's stupid. Yeah, Tad 89, 5 to 7 hours. If I can't win a game in a weekend these days, then there's no way I'm playing it. Just forget it. So yeah, that sounds about right to me. But as I say, Frontier Elite, I just got obsessed with that for a while because it was just so fascinating. And the version I had just fit on a single floppy disk, a PC floppy disk, and you're just like, well, this game is huge. You go to these different worlds, and every world looks different. You go to the store, and there's like job lists, and the jobs are different, and the stocks are different, and it's like most games can't fit on a floppy disk, and this is enormous. Very, very, very impressive for the day. I'm probably even so now, but as I say, I just wasted. I can't even remember how long. I think like half of my summer holiday or something on Frontier Elite. And again, it's a game that I think I've got a copy for the Amiga, and there's a sort of persona in there that thinks, I'd love to play Elite for a full week again, just get back into it and play loads of Elite. But then there's the other part that just says, you're in your 40s. You're not spending a week playing Elite. You get on with something worthwhile. So as I say, it's a shame. I think it's one of those things that's not going to happen. You're never going to be playing lots of Elite again. But a very, very fun game, very nicely designed game. And RPGs, I got loads of these RPGs for the Super Nintendo and things, and it's just like I can't commit the time to them. The only thing I would say, and I did used to do a lot of this a few years ago, is I've got a sort of reasonable working ability of Japanese, and what I used to do is I used to get Japanese language games, and I'd play the games for hours and hours. But if you're playing a foreign game, then of course you're not just sitting around playing games, you're actually learning the foreign language in the process. And so I used to do a lot of that. The only problem with the RPGs is that, usually speaking, they will be structured in such a way to challenge a native speaker. And so if you're someone learning Japanese if my reading level is in a lot of ways probably around that of like a 12-year-old or something, if I'm playing some JRPG that's aimed at 20-year-olds, there's a good chance I will actually be unable to win the game because I will have missed clues to the plot or instructions on what to do. So if I'm playing Pokemon or Harvest Moon in Japanese, I'll probably be okay on that. But if I'm playing Witcher 3 or something, then I'm probably not going to go very well. So as I say, that is one time that I have recently, in the last few years, spent very, very long times playing games, was because I was playing them in Japanese, reading the Japanese text, and just using it as a sort of language study aid as well as a gaming experience. Which, if you're a foreigner learning English, or if you're an English person learning a foreign language, that's certainly something I'd suggest is a good way to try and learn a foreign language from relatively authentic native content. I say relatively authentic because if you're playing like these Japanese games, you do sort of start to learn weird ways of speaking and things. As sort of said before, I was playing things like Umineko, the witch character has this really weird set of language that she uses, and I have become all too used to hearing that kind of way of speaking, and no one speaks. It's like this archaic or even synthetic or fake archaic probably way of speaking, and no one really speaks like that. But I do quite enjoy the characters with these sort of over dramatic ways of speaking that just sorry. that aren't actually done in the real world. But it's quite, as I say, I that is something I do find quite amusing about the old classic games. At the moment in my my Saturday streams, I'm playing very old machines at the moment. I was playing the Super Nintendo before, and I played the NES as well before, but we will get to something a bit more modern. We'll probably do a bit of PSP or maybe some PS3 at some point, and certainly some PS2 as well. So maybe we'll see some kind of Japanese language games. I'd have to make sure that they were stuff that was interesting to watch for people who couldn't understand them, though. So I think maybe a little bit of Harvest Moon or something would be about the limit. I'm not gonna put Umineko on, which is just a endless dialogue slug. But as I say, I do think we'll probably do some at some point. But games. If you can find games that are a good middle ground where you can play them without being perfect in the language, but you can understand the language that's being presented to you, that's certainly a lot of fun. Certainly fun. Anyway, getting distracted again. Police Noughts. No, I've not heard of that. I will have a look. What system is that even for? Sorry, just making a note of that name. I'll have a look. The only problem is anything that's a bit special now has become a bit expensive as well. So, oh, okay. I'll take a look. I've got a Saturn. I mean, at least if it's on the PC, I can get it from some kind of abandonware site, I guess. I don't have a Mega CD. I am picking up a few. I've got Night Trap. I've got Night Trap, the Japanese edition for the Mega CD. So we may play some Mega CD on an emulator. I'm afraid I suspect the real Mega CD unit's so expensive. I'm not. Oh, and PlayStation 1 as well. Okay, well, it's certainly out there on a range of systems. So I'll have a look and maybe it'll be cheap on one. I was looking at this list of wacky games that only came out in Japan on, I think it was the Saturn or something. Oh, is it the Dreamcast maybe? And they mentioned one, and I googled it, and it was like, oh god, it costs the earth. It's like these weird games, these lists of weird games are just cranking the price up. So yeah, I'll have a look at that game, and I'll see if it's a few thousand yen, I'll buy it. Yeah, but if it's over $100, then I'm afraid I'll have to avoid it. And I am trying with the live streams, just for sort of licensing issues, to only play real games, so on real CDs and things. So I'd rather not, if I can avoid it, use abandonware or CD ISOs and things. So okay, well, I say I'll take a look. It sounds like it could be quite fun. Well, let's say with the live streams, I'm just trying to work out what people enjoy watching and what works. I'm hoping to avoid ones with heavy Japanese unless there can be a comedy element to it. I'm hoping at some point to do some of these Japanese quiz games and do it as a bit of an ask the audience kind of thing. But as I say, in general, I think. I think if I'm sitting there looking puzzled at the Japanese trying to translate it and the audience don't speak any Japanese, and I think some of them could get a bit sticky. But ones where action games and things, it's not going to matter so much. And as I say, with a quiz game, I think the silliness of it all could end up quite amusing. Anyway, totally distracted from the task at hand, which is exporting this as an Atari ST file. So just going to save once again temporarily to t.raw here. Save that in Atari ST format. Although, actually, I don't need to. Oh, we don't want fan-made English patches. That's cheating. It's cheating. I'm joking. You know, obviously, for most people, fan-made patches are going to be the solution. But I've spent 10 years learning Japanese. It will hurt my pride to play a translated patch version. I can't do it. I will. I'll come out in some treacherous, some language traitor rash or something, I think. So yes. As I say, if you're English and you want to play a Japanese game, that makes perfect sense. But it doesn't make a lot of sense when you've spent half your life trying to learn Japanese to play English patches. Although I admit, in some cases, some of the games I probably do need them. But my pride will not allow it. Okay, so the smiley bitmap's getting trashed here because we've not changed the size of the drawing, but it's working. Fucking cough. So yeah, it's very impressive how much stuff has been patched into English. In some cases, it surprises me. I did see for the PSP before I came to Japan an English version of the Hatsune Miku game, the music game, and you're like, well, why? You don't. All you need to do is know which menu item to select to get to the game start. It's not a text. It's a music game. You don't need to know what the menus say. You just need to know which button's the start button. So that seemed a bit odd to me, but in general, the RPGs, the translation's a good thing. I just I don't know how you accurately translate things, really, because I mean I can only speak about Japanese, but when you're always going to lose something in the translation, even if the translators are doing their best to be accurate. And often I would expect, firstly, there's going to be an interpretation process, so the person is going to say, well, I think this should mean this, or this is implying this, and that's going to be a problem. But also, I would guess with the fan-made stuff, you're going to get people who say, well, I think it would be better if this person said that. Yeah. Well, but where would we be without all your bases are belong? It's all your bases are belong to us, isn't it? All of your base are belong to us. So I forget it now as well. It's very classic. But that was an official translation, of course. But you can't beat that kind of thing. I can kind of imagine what it would have said in Japanese as well. But all your base are belong to us. Yeah. Well, thanks for that important correction there, Haid. We did need to make sure we were accurate on that meme. It's it's very funny. I mean, to be honest, I've seen a longer clip of that section, and it's not that bad a translation. I mean, it's a bit iffy, but it's not proper word salad. It's not like sometimes you could imagine that it's completely unintelligible, and you can't even try and work out what they're trying to say at all. But that one's not so bad. But I think I think the more outrageous one was the Ghostbusters one that the Angry Video Game Nerd showed. That at the end it says congratulation with the L replaced as an R, and then it starts saying things about now take good rest our hero apostrophe S or something, and it's like there's like loads and loads of grammatical errors in the end message of an English game based on an English property, and you're just like, someone who wasn't English wrote that. I don't think that would have happened if that was an English speaker. And it's like it's perfectly acceptable to have a bit of iffy Japanese in your Japanese translated game, or your Mega Man that's a Japanese origin. But as I say, when it's Ghostbusters is a Western property, you should get a Western person, someone who is reasonably skilled in the English language, to write the game over screen. It just like say, I mean, all your base "I belong to us" is kind of funny, and you can kind of understand what it means. But when it's Ghostbusters, there's no justification for that. But I think I don't know. I guess the 80s were a different world. I guess it was the day when you could rip off King Kong for your Mario game, and where you could rip off Alien for your space shooter, as everyone apparently did. And so I guess you could also hire someone who had almost no understanding of the English language to write your game over screen and just ship it out to the world, maybe. I don't know. Well, we'll be we won't be playing any old games tomorrow. We'll be playing these mini arcade machines on my Saturday stream. So it's more of a hardware review, but I'm sure they'll have dodgy English translations as well for us to be entertained by. But I mean, don't get me wrong, I can be 101% certain that I have done a great number of dodgy Japanese translations and dodgy pronunciation of Japanese words, so I'm in no place to criticize. There's been a few times where I've written things that I've wanted to post on the website at work, and I've handed it to one of the Japanese staff, and it's come back completely different, or they've just flat out laughed when they've seen it. So I can't criticize people for mistakes in English. All I can say is I think they shouldn't get to the final product when the final product is a major titled release. So, and especially in Ghostbusters, when it was only basically about 10 words. It wasn't like they were churning out thousands of pages. Well, yeah, as I say, I mean, to be honest, at 89, I got no. If if a game's been translated into English and just sounds weird, that's not necessarily a problem if it's a fictional world. I mean, there's no problem with a character having a very odd way of speaking, because some people do. It's just when it doesn't make any sense at all. Yeah, hey, that's a very fair comment. Yeah, I'd rather have bad translations than nothing. I mean, the only point where I think it becomes absurd is I've said before about the House of the Dead series, where they dubbed them into English, but they seem to have got like the programmers or the T-boy or something to do the dubbing, because their acting is abysmal. They don't seem to know what they're reading, and it's so bad it actually distracts from the game. And it would be better if it was just Japanese audio that no one could understand. So, but yeah, no, that's a fair comment. Well, I mean, I don't think for modern gaming, I don't think the games not coming to the West is so much of a problem now, is it really? I think they all do tend to come out. Um, and I guess, despite Nintendo hating emulators and ROM files and things, I guess if there's no other way for people to play old games, then at least that is a way that people can get to know them. But I mean, the thing that surprises me about the old games that didn't come out to the West, the really good ones, is the cost of it. Because if you write a game for just your own territory, the cost has got to be pretty similar to if you release it for loads of others. Hazes, are they? I didn't know they were region free. I've lost track of it all because I used to know all of this kind of thing. Being in the UK, you knew which ones you could import and which ones you had to have special consoles for. Yeah, I guess they probably are. I guess they are. The DS was region free, wasn't it? So yeah, that certainly sounds that. I guess that makes sense. That's good. I don't know what's going to happen in the next generation. Well, I mean, there's probably no demand. TAD89 and PlayAsia need to make their money somehow, I think. So, but yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with the next PS5, Xbox generation. I mean, there's already people talking about it, and I'm not optimistic. You know, I have this nasty suspicion that someone like Xbox is going to go diskless or something, and the problem with the move away from physical media is, you know, are they going to block you from buying the digital content, and then you try and use a VPN, and then they block your credit card from the foreign store? I do have concerns that it could start getting a bit silly like that. I don't know. As I say, I'm lucky. I'm in the position now where I live over here, so I can buy what I want from the stores, as long as the stores don't. I would say, as long as it doesn't all go completely digital. But looking behind me at the absurd number of game cartridges on my shelves, I don't think I really need to worry about needing more games. So I do have a Switch, but I've only got about 3 games for it, and I've hardly played it. But my bigger concern these days is the ones that have HDCP encryption on the HDMI, because, you know, it's like I can't live stream them, can I? The PS3, I think you have to run through analog cables because the digital's encrypted, and I don't think the Xbox is encrypted. I don't know about the Switch. The Vita, does that even have HDMI out? I don't think it does. There was that Vita Go thing, the portable Vita, the home unit Vita. I think that was HDMI'd, that HDCP'd. So that's more of my bugbear these days than the regional problems. But as I say, that's just me being selfish living over here. I can completely understand why that kind of thing drives people nuts. But I mean, well, yeah, I mean, I just used to import the consoles, but there's problems with that as well, of course. I've got an English PS2 and a Japanese PS2 over here now, because when I was in the UK, I bought the Japanese PS2, and then I bought the English one, and then I came over here, and so I've still got the pair, so I can play both countries. Okay, I'll have to look into that. Looking on Amazon, occasionally you see people claim like these splitters will remove the HDMI with the HDCP, and often it's not true, because I bought one, it didn't work. So I'll have to look at it when it comes up. It's very frustrating. I say I can understand it with DVDs, but when you're playing games and you want to record a bit of game footage, it's just like, come on, guys, you know, come on. I think most of them for the current generation have now realised that game streamers are now becoming more important to the marketing of a game and magazine reviews and things. So I think they're realising as a necessity of, we need to get our game promoted, and the streamers will do this for us if we let them. But if we block them from being able to capture the video, then they're going to bail. I'm possibly TAD89. I don't even have a PS4 though, so I kind of don't care. I'll buy a PS4 when they turn up in the junk section of Hard Off. Let's put it that way. If I can get one for $50, then we'll talk. But I don't have any. I've said many times, I don't have time for this 40 gigabyte 0-day patch nonsense. If people can't release games that work out the box on the disc, then I can't be bothered to buy it. So, as I said before, I've got plenty of games. I'm not going to run out of games because I didn't buy a PS4. So, I mean, I'm only just starting to look at the I'm planning to buy a Dreamcast now, and I've been beefing up my PS1 collection. So, if they think they can entice me into a PS5, they might be able to, but it won't be this decade. It'll be probably 2040 or something by the time I'm starting to think of buying a PS5. So, I think I'll let the other people sort out all of the no doubt DRM problems. I mean, remember all of that nonsense when the Xbox One came out? Didn't they bundle it with the Kinect sensor, and it was horrendously expensive, and loads of people bought it, and then they realised they were going to lose the console wars, so they removed the Kinect sensor, and then it became really cheap, and all the people who'd been developing for the Kinect got angry, and all the people who'd spent money on the expensive version that didn't want the Kinect got angry, and it's just like, wow. Early adopters, unfortunately, isn't it? But yeah, there's no way I'm not streaming games. If I can't own it on a CD, or a disc or media, I don't care. So anyway, far too much gibbering, far too little programming, but never mind. So if these 16-bit machines are really quite boring for doing the graphics on screen. Which it was the first Xbox, was it? TAD 89 had to be always online. Well, none of my games consoles have ever been online. If I buy a game that needs to be online, or a game console that needs to be online, and it doesn't work, then I will just not buy any more stuff for it. I'm prepared to lose money on principle on this one, because, as I say, I'm still playing the games I did when I was 10. And I would quite like, if I find a game that I enjoy today, to think I could still be playing that in another 30 years. And online requirements are going to take that away from me. So I'd rather just not play the game if that's the choice I've got. So I say I like to, even if I don't have a lot of time for playing games anymore, I do like to play the odd game just to have a quick, to see what the industry's doing, to see how technology's progressing. But these days, as I say, I got the Switch. I've got I download the odd game from GOG. I do like their stuff, but I'm quite willing to let games slip by me on principle if they are doing nonsense like online activation required, 0-day patches. The game didn't come out on the disc. There's no disc. It just has a download key. Nonsense like that. Yeah, well, TAD 89, I'd say. Well, everyone knows it's stupid, don't they? I mean, everyone knows what's going to happen. They'd shut the servers down, and all the games will stop working. I mean, they're just relying on kids who are too young to realise this, or completely obsessed geeks who will buy literally anything before moving on to the next literally anything 10 minutes later. I mean, it's short-sighted, I think. I mean, all of the stuff that's being sold these days is being pushed on the back of nostalgia. Shenmue 3 and Ghostbusters, whatever. It's like they're not selling to young kids. They're selling to people who remember all of this old stuff. And if they keep doing this thing of you remember that old game you used to play that stopped working 5 years later because we shut the server down? Well, we've released a new version. Everyone's going to think, yeah, you pissed us off with that. We ain't buying your stuff. You're not going to be able to rely on people's nostalgia for stuff if the end of that nostalgia was having it all ripped off you because the DRM failed or the central server got shut down. So I think they should be treating their own product with more reverence. I think they should be understanding that there will be people who will become heavily invested in these products and will want to be able to play them beyond the life of the online activation server or the hard drive they downloaded the 0-day patch to, and now they can't download it onto the new one because the server that downloaded it before is gone. So as I say, I got no time for it. The PSP and the PS3 and things, they got huge catalogues of games. So I don't see a reason to move to these newer ones if they're going to play silly games like that. Well, anyway, I mean, more chatting than programming today, but that's all good. To be honest, these 16 colour machines are far too easy to write these tutorials for. With the 6502 and the more I'm reading tab 89. The game's running slower. Sorry, I apologise. I missed the mute there when I was coughing. Yes. Now, the problem, as you probably know, is that the Japanese and US TVs are 60 hertz, whereas the UK ones are 50 hertz. And the way they did things is the hardware that produced the signal used the same timing chip as the processor clock. So the processor is actually slower on the UK release than the American Japanese release. Now, provided your game isn't like running crazy fast, like there's literally no processing power left, what you would need to do is you need to use the interrupts, like the 50 hertz, 60 hertz interrupt during VBlank, which is while the screen's redrawing, and then you would need to calculate and alter your speed of your events accordingly. So rather than moving your character one pixel to the right every megahertz, shall we say, you would move it like every fifth tick on the 50 hertz and every sixth tick on the 60 hertz, effectively moving every second. So you would need to alter your code and use those interrupts and calculate all your movements based on those interrupts, which is going to be a pain. It's tough. I mean, Chibi Akuma's didn't work like that. Chibi Akuma's was just move as fast as possible. I understand why. I understand why the coders usually didn't do it. It's very frustrating. Bubble Bobble. I've got Bubble Bobble on the Master System, the UK Master System, and also on the Japanese Mark III, which is the Japanese Master System. And the UK one, there's nothing wrong with it, but it just looks terrible because the music's slower, the gameplay is slow. It feels like a beta or something, just because of the speeds. The speeds off. That was my alarm to tell me to get to work. So yeah, it's certainly a problem. But all you can do is you have to monitor the timing of the VBlank and then use that in your calculations. And affect the movement speed of your characters or the position of objects on the screen and the playing of the music accordingly. And yeah, it's a pain. It's a lot of extra work, but that's the only workaround if that's what you want. If you want to support both frequencies without a significant change to your game, unfortunately, without a significant change to the end user experience. Yeah, as I say, I mean, honestly, if you're just starting out, I'd just accept it as a thing that's going to happen, because as I say, it's extra work, and on an 8-bit, when you're an amateur coder, I'm not sure it's justified. Whereas, as I say, if Bubble Bobble couldn't be bothered to do it right, then I think an amateur's allowed to not do it right as well, shall we say? But that's what you would have to do. Anyway, I've got to go to work, so that's going to be the end of this stream. I hope everyone's had some entertainment in the lack of programming and the excessive amount of chat. But anyway, I hope you all have a good evening or afternoon or day if you're in the same territory as I am. But take care now. Thanks for watching, and if you get the opportunity, please join me for tomorrow's stream. You should already see a scheduled thing for it. Take care now. Thanks everyone. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.